What is up, guys? Welcome back to this episode of the Road to Redemption podcast. I'm, as always, your host, Cam Williamson, and today I think it's a good idea that we talk all things self-defense, right? Now, I want to reiterate one last time, anything further than this point, I'm going to need everyone's assistance in supporting me. So when people go, who the fuck is this guy? What does he know, right? So I was a military police officer for most of my military career. I was a field artillery meteorologist and field surveyor for like 6 months, my initial first 6 months into the military. As soon as they dissolved that MOS from the Army, I was out. Well, I also got out of the National Guard and then went into the reserves because the National Guard sucks. Anyway, not the point. I did 5.5, 6 years as a military police officer. Combat support military police officer. 1 deployment to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. Okay. So I know a little bit about escalations of force, stuff like that. Now, I was always held under the rules of the Geneva Convention. Those are, and UCMJ, which is the laws of the military and laws of war, right? This is war that we're talking about. When we're talking about in-country combat, we are not in war. 2 separate things. We are not in a civil war here. So, we're talking self-defense here in the country, and I'm going to refer to other cases that if they pop up. But right now, we got Ahmaud Arbery, and I apologize if I mispronounce anyone's name. We've got the 3 men. It was a father and a son, and then the other guy that are on trial for killing him. We've got the Travis Scott thing, which self-defense could have been a part of that, right? We've got so many different cases. We've got, George Floyd is obvious. That's kind of what kicked a lot of these things off. So let's talk about it, right? The big debate on my channels came when I posted that video clip of the Friday clip, right? Talking about you use these. And I posted at the top, Kyle Rittenhouse is a coward. Implying exactly what the video said, that if you need a gun to handle business, and that's your first course of action. Now, that's the point. That is your first course of action. That makes you cowardice, in my opinion. Now, if we're talking person has a gun, I have a gun, probably concealed. Now, again, some crazy situations would have to dictate me carrying concealed in my own. I would have to dictate that situation to need it. I don't walk around all the time with a gun on my person, but I don't go a lot of places either. But that's because I know how people act. I know how quick people are to pull guns on each other and shit when things pop off, and I don't want to be a part of that shit. A lot of people were critical because I voiced my opinion on what happened with George Floyd when I thought he was murdered by Derek Chauvin. And that was when the first wave of my initial following, especially on Instagram, got upset with me and goes, how could you back this bias of, it's black against white and it's this and this against. And I go, well, hey, I'm not going to ignore the movement that's out there. Now, people want me to, because I'm not going to ignore the movement that's out there, they want to go, well, you agree with Black Lives Matter, and did you know Black Lives Matter is actually a terrorist group now, and did you know who leads this? I don't know anything about it. An official Black Lives Matter organization or people who choose to organize in the streets and demonstrate for Black Lives Matter, I don't know anything about them. And this is a point that I keep making to people. Groups of people contain what? Individual people. So you can show up and represent a group, but you are responsible for what you do as an individual. Why is that? We're all individuals. We all have different experiences. We all have different beliefs, right? But we all operate on common ground. We have a lot of states in this country where open carry is allowed. I'm from Ohio. I currently live in Tennessee. I've lived in Indiana. I've spent tons of time in Kentucky because of the bordering states around it. And, everything else I did was really for the military, so I stayed on bases if I was around. But every place I've ever been, when you see someone open carrying, it always catches someone's eye and goes, oh, that guy's got a gun. And he's open carrying with it. Oh, okay. Now, as long as that thing stays in the holster and he doesn't have his hand on it, it doesn't draw people's attention. But this is my personal opinion and many opinions of people that I've shared rooms and discussions with. Open carrying is irresponsible to yourself because if a situation pops off, the threat has already picked you out as the first person to go because you're the only person clearly who could do anything about this. So most people who have thought of situations in advance, prepared for things if they might get crazy, or just choose to carry on their person every single day everywhere they go. I'm not dogging that. I'm just saying I personally don't. I have my own reasons. And then, so an issue pops off. Unarmed, clearly armed. Now we're talking about Kyle Rittenhouse in this case. Unarmed, clearly armed. I come at you because in my mind, it's hypothetical. I'll play the other scenario too. I've done that too. In my mind, I'm coming at you to get that gun from you. Bang, you shoot and kill me. Now, I'm going to have to go to court and explain why bang happened. And I'm going to have to be able to articulate why bang happened because bang happened. So, open carrying didn't cause bang to happen. Person caused bang to happen. So person needs, or person's defense team, needs to be able to articulate why bang happened. Now, bang happening, I think it's funny now to just refer to it as bang. Bang happening doesn't necessarily kill people in any situation. Rounds can be fired. Let's be more professional now that the comedy's over. It's not funny to joke when people are dead. So you can fire rounds off that are not, the kill shot, that don't kill a person. Now, it's all in the articulation. If you pay attention to these self-defense laws, it clearly says if you are possessing deadly force, you must exhaust all options leading up to it before doing that. I think that's a key instruction that Kyle Rittenhouse's jury is deliberating on, and that's why we're in the situation we're in, where they're almost, it's almost noon Central Time, and they're still deliberating. There's, I believe, still 2 motions for mistrial, one with prejudice, one without. Neither have been addressed by Judge Schroeder. They say he's got a full day in court. I've seen him pop in and out a few times, but nothing about Kyle Rittenhouse's case has been addressed today. All right. So the question stands with the people that got upset over the Friday case. Let's take Kyle's case out. If I'm unarmed or you're unarmed, if one of us is armed and the other one's not, and I feel threatened because I believe that your actions with that rifle are irresponsible and I go to take it from you. Now, I would have to explain my actions afterwards, whether I start pointing it back at you, whether I start running. I have to explain that. The argument that having lethal force and escalating straight to lethal force with no ability or evidence that you articulated why, that's not good for you. So if nothing else, this is a warning to anyone who rightfully carries a firearm. understand what you're bringing and where you're bringing it. Understand that what you believe may not be what the law says, right? So you believing that someone doesn't have a right to physically strike you with their fists, or I think you would be able to warrant shooting someone if they tried to hit you with a club. That could be considered a deadly weapon. But I'm saying unarmed. I think Kyle's biggest fucking mistake was that when the prosecutor said, you clearly saw he did not have a gun, he did not have a knife, he did not have a stick, he did not have a chain. He goes, yes, yes, yes. My guy, you just admitted there was no imminent threat to your life other than his hands, and you have lethal force. So you are then required to exhaust all non-lethal options for eliminating that threat before using the lethal force you possess. Again, during a tussle, he's not wrong for having it. Maintain it, motherfucker, get off me, butt strike, something, motherfucker, get off me, bang! Okay, now we're having a different conversation. But people want to use the excuse, or they want to play the idea of, what if a civilian goes for a police officer's gun, right? Okay, so there's a lot of details in that. So let's just play a hypothetical situation out. A police officer addresses a scene. Again, we'll play a whole hypothetical situation out. I guess you guys will be able to point out if I say it in a biased way or not. Officer approaches on the scene. Normal traffic stop. License and registration. He pulls license. We'll say person doesn't have insurance or he can't find it. No problem. I'm going to go back, run your info. I'll be right back. Hang tight. Comes up. Okay. Person's not allowed to have a gun. They're a felon. They right now don't have insurance, but I have name, positive ID. That is who that is. They're not allowed to have a gun. I'm just putting that in there. Well, let's take that out. Just let's not make them a felon. Let's just normal person. I don't want to complicate it. Hey, Mr. Smith, I would have to come up with a reason why they got pulled over. You were going 57 in a 50. You know you can't do that. Hey, by the way, did you find your insurance? No? Okay. Hey, whatever. I'm having a hard time finding how a conflict would ensue. Mr. Smith gets really pissed off that this is taking longer than it should. He gets out completely unarmed, and now he's standing in the roadway saying, what the fuck? Officer's telling him, get back in the vehicle, get back in the vehicle, get back in the vehicle. He's not listening to him. He's walking towards him. Officer draws, bang, 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 shoots and kills him. Is that officer going to be justified for that? No. Because he has pepper spray, he has a taser, he has many other things on him, which is required by him, by law, for the reasons that you have to exhaust those options before using deadly force, which is the general rule for self-defense as a human, also as a law enforcement officer. So, to my understanding, civilians are being held to the same standard as law enforcement when it comes to firearm handling and what the proper use of deadly force is not. There's not a mixed bag here. Where the mixed bag comes in, police departments have professionals who have been through these situations millions of times, understand that things are not black and white when it comes to details, and things are not always so clear. Everything is a second by second by second by second case basis. Everything when it comes down to a crime being committed. Everything matters. It's when laziness happens with attention. When people get tired of following a case or, of eyewitness testimony just drags on a little too long for them and they turn it off and they miss very crucial points of what happens, it leads to a lot of misinformation and it leads to a lot of misrepresentation. And when we allow things like these situations to happen and we don't speak on them and we don't share our observations and our opinions on what we believe as Americans, well then we're never going to move forward in any way together. We're going to stay divided, because if this case isn't happening right now, we're not having this conversation. This is saved for another day at another time when somebody else gets killed. But we're having this conversation now, so we have to have it. And this will define, like I've said, what is self-defense going forward. I don't agree you should be charging people. I don't agree with that. But in any situation, we are changing the narrative that even if I'm not saying Kyle was an active shooter. Stop. Sorry, I had to stop my dog. I'm not saying Kyle was an active shooter, but saying if an active shooter situation happened and someone, in my opinion, heroically went to disarm that person, now again, they would have to explain their actions afterwards, we would be sending the message going forward that don't do that. Which would mean in times of emergency, we can't help each other, or at least attempt to help each other. Prosecutor Binger in Rittenhouse's case makes a good point when he says people disarm active shooters all the time. I'm not making a comment on his use of that term throughout this case, but he did make that point. You have to remember, everything that's said in a courtroom is very important, right? What it is said, remember, everything in a courtroom is going on a record. So the words they say, not how they say it, not with how much emphasis they say it, what they said. Not how we got Kyle Rittenhouse's case. Judge Schroeder's taking a stand, and it looks like people are, the camera's paying attention. So we might have something live. I doubt it's a verdict, so it's probably just them talking about maybe the motions for mistrial. We got that going on. If there is something new in that regard, I see prosecuting attorney Binger is there. So they're talking about Kyle's situation. I guess if something happens while we're live, we'll know. But I think I've turned my TV down. Anyway, they are live, so we'll see what they're talking about. Maybe it's the mistrials. Like I said, there's 2 motions for mistrials right now, and they are live. So, guys, understand what self-defense is. Understand I don't want anyone to go to prison, right? I don't want any human being to go to prison. If said human being finds themselves in a situation where they are facing prison time, they have to be held accountable for their actions by the letter of the law. Or else our Constitution and our laws mean nothing. Kyle's got a little smirk on his face, so I'm guessing we're talking mistrials, and I will update you guys with a second video with any important happenings on this, but I'm going to run so I can track it. Love you guys. See you in the next one.